All right, everybody, welcome back. Good afternoon. We've got some more Pro Football Focus data to take a look at here. Now we're doing the defense. We are doing the defensive side of the ball for the Seahawks, where as a team, they played great. The Steelers mostly scored off of turnovers. Their one touchdown was off a very short field. And there was one big play, really, the Jaylen Warren 65-yard catch that kind of skewed the numbers. Other than that, it was relatively shut down. So pretty promising, pretty good. But let's take a look at what Pro Football Focus thinks about them. Again, I'm not saying that Pro Football Focus always gets it right or that they always get it wrong. They just do good work, and I think it's worth looking at. Please like this video, subscribe if you're new, click the bell, become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support. Check out my latest video on the Bleacher Report. Should be viewable through the app or the website. And let's go on. Leading the way, as he does many, many times for this team because he is such a wonderful player, is Big Cat Leonard Williams. I don't think he did anything over-the-top remarkable on Sunday, but he is just kind of naturally remarkable with the work that he does as a player. So you can see that there are some areas where they thought he was a little bit deficient, but overall they still think he is a wonderful player, and they are correct in thinking that. And Murphy, as kind of anticipated, was way up here. When you're playing defensive tackle and you're playing a lot of your reps as kind of a nose, then if you cook up pressure, you're going to get a lot of credit for it. So 74.7 there, really good, really promising. Also very high, and this should be very encouraging to people because this is even with some of the issues he had in this game, which we will talk about throughout this video. They thought he played really well. So that's interesting. That's notable because there are at least a couple plays out there where he's putting a pretty negative result on the tape. And nevertheless, they still graded him really well. So we're headed in the right direction. The two young edge rushers, Mafe and Hall, both chime in with pretty respectable performances. Notably, though, they do still have Mafe coming in a good amount higher than Hall, which is not what I would have expected, and I would guess not what a lot of people have, and it's because of pass rushing. So it's always interesting to see how PFF sometimes contrasts the grade with their own data. Sometimes it seems like the data and the grade contradict each other. But obviously there's more to a football game for somebody who's playing over 40 snaps than just the few times they got pressure. And then, of course, Darion Kendrick is here as well with a good grade, which makes sense. I mean, he made one of the biggest plays of the game. Jaron Reed, good, solid. Mike Morris, got to give him a little bit of a shout out. It wasn't that many snaps, but he did his job. Drake Thomas, okay. Again, I think that he should be getting worked out of the lineup pretty much completely soon here, but he's holding his own when he's out there. Ty Okada, nothing disastrous, and that's all you can really ask for from him. And even a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, who PFF wasn't enamored with this week, it's still not bad. Julian Love gets dinged heavily for his tackling, but not a terrible game either. And then you start to get into the guys that PFF really didn't like. And there's definitely going to be a couple areas where I have to just kind of put my foot down and be like, no, that can't be right. There's no way that's accurate. There's no way Josh Jobe is below sea level for that game. 59.6 for Josh Jobe. I'm not buying that. I'll tell you one thing I am buying, though, is Sleeper. I'll tell you more about them now. Before we go any further into this video, I want to tell you a little bit about my friends over at Sleeper. Have you heard about the app, the Sleeper app? Download it. I'm going to let you in on a little something now. It's more than just a platform for fantasy leagues. Yes, this year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but there is so much more to this app. There are live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats. News feed is lightning fast. You get updates on your favorite players and teams. There is a chat you can use in real time to engage with other users about plays and performances. All kinds of fun stuff like that over there. So download the Sleeper app, the #1 sports app today. Experience it yourself. Use promo code SBN to get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. SBN promo code. Back to the video. All right, welcome back. So I'm sorry, I know Job missed some tackles, but you can't tell me that he shouldn't even be at sea level in a game where he was great in coverage again, and he was being asked to do something difficult. He was being asked to defend DK Metcalf, who has like 6 inches on him. So not buying that. Kobe Bryant gets a below average grade despite his interception, which, I mean, it hasn't been a great start to the season for Kobe Bryant. I will admit that, but I don't know if I'm buying 56. Nwosu, give it time, people. Give it time. He's got to work his way back into things. Don't trip on it too much. But not a great game, which you wouldn't expect. And then you've got some part-timers here just kind of bringing up the rear. D'Anthony Bell, Brandon Peely, Shaq Griffin. I don't really agree with the grade for Peely. I thought he was fine. But those guys, either way, are not very impactful. The two big negatives in this game, according to PFF, were Ernest Jones and Reek Woolen. Now, I understand that Ernest Jones and Reek Woolen actually both had a really bad day at the office tackling. They both had miserable tackling grades. Woolen had a penalty in coverage. Ernest Jones got beat up in coverage a little bit over the middle. I don't know if they were this bad. I have a hard time saying that these two guys were this bad. I'm just not quite on board with that. I'd have to go back and look at it. Maybe I'd have a different opinion if I rewatched the game, but 47.6, 47.2. I don't know. I'm not buying it. Anyway, like I said, missed tackling was a really big problem in this game. It's this column right here. Big Cat, as good a game as he had, missed one. Tyrese missed two. And it's notable he had a really good grade despite that. So, I mean, that's cool, right? We like that. But Julian Love had a missed tackle. Josh Jobe had a missed tackle. Kobe Bryant had two. Ernest Jones had three. So you can kind of see where the issue is. I still don't think it was as bad as they're painting it, but it's still not good. Reek Woolen with two. Shaq Griffin misses a tackle as well. And when you play as little as Shaq Griffin did, you can't be missing a tackle if you want your PFF grade to be decent. So I can understand the low grade there, I guess. Not that it means that much, but yeah, the tackling has really not been that sharp to start the season. That's one thing I will say. The defense is playing well, but they are leaving some meat on the bone with their inability to tackle cleanly. All right, run defense. Let's go ahead and start here. The run defense overall was quite good, but no one person really stood out in an over-the-top way in terms of volume. Nobody had more than 2 run stops in this game. You can see Big Cat, Knight, Murphy had 2 each. Ernest Jones also had 2, but he had some issues in other areas that actually hurt his grade significantly. You can see that Reek Woolen's all the way down here at the bottom because he had 1 opportunity to make a run tackle and he missed. So that makes sense. But nothing really super stand out here individually. We had a handful of players more or less doing their job and coming up with run stops like they should, including, by the way, I should say, Derek Hall. And Derek Hall's somebody who is not really a player that people are enamored with against the run, myself included. So that's good to see. Tyrese Knight and Byron Murphy both getting 2 is really nice to see. So overall, not bad, but there was nothing remarkably stand out from this group. Oh, and Mike Morris with the run stop as well in very limited snaps. So shout out to him. He did his thing. Very limited snaps, but I thought he did his thing. Okay, let's hop on over to the pass rush grading category here, where you can see the grading. It's not great. The grading itself is very mediocre. You can see a little bit of green at the top, but then some orange, and then we're kind of dipping into the yellow and then orange. No red, but this isn't exactly what we were hoping to see on Monday, I'll admit. Now, the volume stats are pretty decent, right? You've got Byron Murphy with 4 pressures, and same with Derek Hall. Now, this is interesting to me because I know that I think it was Next Gen Stats had Derek Hall with 6 pressures yesterday, so you can see the discrepancy there, where even PFF, that is generally very liberal here, they only give him 4. And remember that number for Pro Football Reference later this week, where they're probably going to give him like 2. So you can see how the discrepancies really make a difference here. But those 2 guys lead the way. Jaron Reed had a really good game with 3. Big Cat doing his thing. Mafe kind of got ignored in this game. I think kind of was a forgotten guy, but PFF thinks he did a really good job. 2 for him. Nwosu had 1 pressure, and DeMarcus Lawrence also had 1 pressure. So in terms of volume, it's good. But that Steelers offensive line is not very good. Aaron Rodgers is not mobile enough to escape pressure anymore. So that's probably part of the reason why the grading is very lackluster, very forgettable. And there are still some opportunities that the team isn't fully cashing in on. So hopefully it gets better, because I think this pass rush has the potential to be very dominant this year. All right, so that is the pass rush stuff. Let's look at coverage. Coverage, there are some very clear issues this week, right? There's some very clear problems. It's not hard to figure out where the concerns are. Now, some of this stuff is kind of empty, and it's also worth noting that the grade does not always jive with the raw numbers. And again, that's going to be something that PFF kind of keeps in-house. They're not going to tell us about that. Nwosu got targeted once, so we're kind of throwing that out. That doesn't really mean anything. It's not meaningful. You can see a handful of other players getting in coverage a few times, and it doesn't really amount to anything. So focusing on the things that really matter. The good stuff. Darion Kendrick, 5 targets, 13 yards on 2 catches. Again, he's not somebody we were expecting to play significant snaps at all this year. He's getting pushed out there in week 2, and he's holding his own. 5 targets, 13 yards on 2 catches. Really, really strong, really, really good. Josh Jobe, and this is another reason why I just have a hard time buying his grade. 4 targets, 1 catch for 7 yards. You can't be that much better. And remember, Josh Jobe is not a big-time player. This is not somebody we gave a ton of money in the offseason. This is not somebody the whole league knows about. So I'm struggling to understand where that grade comes from. I have to be honest. Kobe Bryant, 2 targets, 7 yards. Unfortunately, he allowed the DK touchdown, so that's going to hurt the grade, even though it's not terrible. For the most part, those are the things that really stand out positively. Now, we do have some nuance we got to get into here, right? Tyrese Knight, 5 targets, 5 catches, 83 yards. That sounds terrible, right? Remember, most of it was on one play. Most of it was on the 65-yarder by Warren, where, yes, Knight made a bad play, but there were a lot of other players that made a bad play as well that allowed that play to go as long as it did. You take that play out, it's 4 targets, 4 catches for 18 yards, which is much more manageable. Now, obviously, the completion and some of the yards are his fault. A lot of the yards are not. There are plenty of other players out there that needed to make that tackle that simply didn't. So you can see why the grade is still pretty decent, even though this stat line looks horrible. Drake Thomas gets targeted once, doesn't allow the catch. Julian Love, 3 targets, 26 yards, which... he's not off to a great start this year in coverage overall. I feel like definitely having some issues through the first couple of games. Not terrible, but I am hoping things pick up as the season goes on. D'Anthony Bell, very limited data here. 1 target, 1 catch, 12 yards, whatever. Ernest Jones did get beat up. 5 targets, 39 yards, not very good. So we're not loving that. And there's a pretty big A dot here as well, almost 10.6. So he is getting targeted down the field, and that is just something we're going to have to live with as a team. He's not great in coverage, but I don't think he's a disaster in coverage the way some people painted him. Also, 2 missed tackles in coverage, so that's a big part of the problem there. Shaq Griffin, very limited work, allows 1 catch for 7 yards and gets punished heavily for it because he did miss a tackle. Woolen, though, 2 targets, 18 yards, which is whatever. That's not terrible, that's not great, it's whatever. It's dinged mostly because of the penalty and also because of the missed tackle, so it kind of makes sense. I don't think he was actually this bad, but you can see why PFF came to that conclusion. I don't think they're wrong. I just think that it's over-exaggerating what he did poorly out there to say that, oh, he deserves a sub-50 coverage grade. It's one of those things where technically it's probably true, but I don't really hold it against him all that hard. Speaking of coverage, one thing I want to look at real quick, DK Metcalf in this game. Look at how these targets got divvied out here in terms of who was in coverage. And again, explain to me how Josh Jobe doesn't get a good grade when he is only targeted twice when covering Metcalf and allows 0 catches. I don't know how many snaps Job was in coverage total against Metcalf. It doesn't say, I don't believe it says on PFF, but I don't get it. I do know that DK had a drop, and that's probably part of it, but still, I don't understand how you give him a below replacement level grade for 2 targets and 0 catches. Hard for me to buy. Anyway, special teams to wrap things up real quick. There's not a lot to report here. I don't know why George Holani doesn't get like a 99, because it was about the most impactful play you could have. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, really, especially because they gave him a below replacement level grade on the kickoffs when literally he made the play of the game on a kickoff. But the leaders were Mike Morris, so I guess Mike Morris definitely deserves an underrated badge for this game. Brady Russell had 2 special teams tackles. DeAnthony Bell graded well, too. If you go down to the bottom here, some of the issues, nothing huge, but Saubert, Oots, Barner, they didn't fare terribly well. And that's interesting, right? Because Saubert actually had a special teams tackle in this game. You wouldn't expect him to necessarily get punished like that. If you expand out to the right here, you can see that there are some missed tackles here that are not helping, like Drake Thomas, but nothing really stands out over the top here. Again, don't really know why George Holani doesn't get some love for recovering a touchdown on special teams, but I don't know. They got their formula, and we know how to use it without completely depending on it. All right, that's it for the Pro Football Focus defense video. See you guys soon. Go Hawks. Probably at least one more video today. We'll see what happens. But everybody have a great rest of your day. Go Hawks. And let me know what y'all think about what PFF has to say about this Seahawks defense that has been very good so far.